It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
Welcome back to the to the show that we're doing right now.
Following the local teams, breaking down the biggest games with in-depth analysis and team interviews.
There's going to be much higher expectations, sense of awareness of what we bring to the table.
Join the show by calling into 435-752-1069 or text 435-339-0321. It's the Full Court Press.
Throws, ends it, yes! Caught! Touchdown, did he get it?
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome on in to another edition of the Full Court Press. Eric Frandsen, Jason Walker, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, streaming online, 1069thefan.com, and the 1069 The Fan mobile app. What's going on? Different ways to follow us and what's going on. Love to have you part of the show. Talk about a lot of different things here today on the Full Court Press this hour. We got high school hoops picking up again. It's been kind of a quiet week for high school basketball. We had the girls last night, boys playing tonight, resetting the region schedule a little bit. So we'll run down who's playing where, kind of what's on the line in these games. Busy night in the Mtn West tonight. A couple of games tomorrow. Certainly one of those involves the Aggies. We'll continue that discussion from last hour. And the Jazz in action as well. And so a lot of different topics. I know we got a lot of all-star festivities taking place this weekend with the NHL and the NFL with their all-star events. So precursor to what could be taking place in Salt Lake City in a few weeks with the all-star game of the NBA coming to Utah. But I don't know. We'll look at those events, and I think that these other leagues are getting a step up on the NBA and their all-star festivities. But we'll go through those a little bit later on. But first and foremost, a busy night, high school basketball. A lot of these games all of these games for Region 11 will be on our family of radio stations. And a run-through of who's playing where and how you can follow along. But, Jason, this is as you detailed in your kind of earlier this week, your mid-region recap of what's been going on so far. This is an interesting set of standings we're coming into last night's games for the girls and tonight for the boys, just where there are no ties. It's a clear delineation in the standings, and I'm not sure that the second half will continue to bear that out, but it's kind of interesting nonetheless looking at how it's clear 1 through 6, the current standings in region play and how that might change going forward, and it resets tonight.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, the big teams to pay attention to as far as upsetting the perfect pecking order we have right now, we're going to be probably Logan, Bear River, and Ridgeline. Those are teams that maybe could wind up beating up on us. Bear River might be able to get one up on Logan after Logan beat Bear River. Probably just caught him on a bad night. Granted, that's not the matchup happening tonight, but those are things looking forward where maybe teams just caught each other on a bad night. Logan, Ridgeline played to overtime. Maybe they'll flip things around. Maybe Green Canyon catches somebody lacking. They almost got Logan on Logan's home court. So we'll have to pay attention and see which of these teams slip up or overperform on certain nights so that we avoid having a 10-0, 8-2, 6-4, all the way down to 0-10. That's it's perfectly predictable, but also perfectly boring. We don't want to see that. I want to see exciting, battle it out Region 11, not this no ties bull crap.
Well, so there are a couple of interesting games tonight on the schedule. So Logan is at home. They're hosting Mountain Crest. Bear River, they're hosting Skyview. And Ridgeline hosting Green Canyon. So that's the schedule for boys' games tonight. So the couple different ways to follow these games. Logan and Mountain Crest, it'll be on 102.1 FM, 610 AM KVNU, as well as 107.7 KLZX. Jason, you'll be calling that game. Bear River and Skyview, a couple different ways to follow that matchup. So the Bear River broadcast, that'll be on 104.9 The Ranch in Box Elder County. Skyview, if you want to watch the game, you can watch the Skyview video stream. Hurricane John Newbold will be there. That will also be on the radio here on The Fan. And then last but not least, Ridgeline and Green Canyon. It'll be Dave Simmons and Nick Zollinger on the call there in Millville on 104.5 The Ranch, also on 100.9 Light FM. And options to watch all of these games on CashValleyDaily.com. And if I were to look at any particular matchup tonight that really could stand out, I should probably say that Logan Mountain Crest game because, as you noted, it was a close one last time these two teams met.
Yeah, a really low-scoring game, which fits a little more to Mountain Crest, where Logan ended up pulling away. They ended up winning, by double digits, and mostly because it was Oliver Nethercott versus the Grizzlies. That was kind of what it was. He had like 20-something points that night. I think he ended up winning Player of the Week that week for his efforts. But if Mountain Crest gets more than just Oliver Nethercott going, then they have a chance to get things going. When they went to overtime against the Green Canyon, they won that game. It's Mountain Crest, actually their only win in region play so far was against Green Canyon overtime. They got contributions from other players, not just Nethercott. And they wound up scoring 78 points in double overtime. So that's a big key for them there. Nethercott can go off for 20 points and the Grizzlies can still win. Or Nethercott can go off for 15, 16, get some contributions from Caden Hess and I forgot the name of the other kid, their second leading scorer. I want to say it's Hunsaker. I think that's wrong, but they've got some players who can contribute, and if they manage to contribute, it's Joseph Hunsaker. I wasn't crazy. So, if they can get some contributions from those two guys along with Nethercott, you can have an interesting game. But if Logan gets things scoring a ton, then it may get out of hand for Mountain Crest, who have one of the least effective offenses in 4A right now.
Well, Logan, considering interesting what they were able to do the last time they played, they had one of their top players that was out. But despite that, they were able to hang in there and compete really strong against Ridgeline and force overtime. But this is what I think I'm going to be interested to watch tonight is where some of these teams who have struggled a bit, just what kind of changes do they make? And the time that they've had this week to spend extra time in the gym together and work on some things, like particularly Mountain Crest and Green Canyon. What kind of changes are they going to be making? What kind of different teams are we going to see over these last couple of weeks with that extra time that they've had and a chance to kind of reset some things, maybe just mentally? I don't know that it's so much a change in rotation. You can't make a mid-season trade or anything. You change your roster. But it can be an opportunity for guys to spend extra time in the gym and work on a few things. And these have been teams that look like they have rosters that can do a little bit more than what they've done so far.
I'm probably most curious to see what Bear River does. This is a team that came into region play at 9-3. They were I think 4th or 5th in the RPI. This is a team that came in as potentially a team that was going to shake things up, and they come out of that first half of region. They're 2-3 in region play, and probably understandable are the losses to Ridgeline and Skyview. But I think losing at home to Logan was, kind of a bit of a gut punch. Was oh my gosh, we're not one of the top teams anymore. And so I'm interested to see how they turn things around. They got Kyver Jensen, Garrick Marble, two guys who are, impressive statistically in this region, but they weren't really able to put together the wins, at least against, maybe a Logan or a Ridgeline. Those are two teams you'd want them to compete with, because Logan competed with Ridgeline. Logan kind of competed with Skyview. So Logan's been up there, even though they lost to Ridgeline, but then they beat up on Bear River. So I think the Bears, they're going to be looking to try and do a little bit better, challenge Ridgeline, challenge Skyview, beat Logan, which would be a challenge because they're going to go on the road, but it's certainly possible. They have a good team. So we'll see how that goes with the Bears. I'm most interested in watching them because they're the team that's most likely to flip their region record in terms of what happened in the first half of region and what can happen in the second half.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And when I look at the schedule for tonight, I know we were highlighting Logan and Mountain Crest, but another one that could be interesting is that Ridgeline Green Canyon matchup, only in the sense that Ridgeline really kind of struggled against against Logan last week when Logan didn't even have their star player available. And so Ridgeline could be, yes, they've got a solid record and they look good in the standings, but they are vulnerable. They showed that they're not, they're not going to blow everybody away. And granted, maybe Skyview is that team that we can say that about. But Ridgeline has shown that they've got some holes, they've got some gaps, and maybe that can give Green Canyon a little bit of hope.
Ridgeline is an interesting team because when I look at them on paper, I say, why isn't this team doing better than they are? Now, 4-1 in region, that's not the worst thing that can happen to you. But you mentioned, some close games, getting blown out by Skyview, barely, I don't know, blown out by Skyview, but barely beating Logan, struggling at times, even against Green Canyon. Last time they faced Green Canyon, they were trailing in midway through the second quarter by 7 or 8 points. So it feels like this is a team that's underperforming because they have a 6'9" kid, a 6'6" kid in the post. Then they've got 6'4" Carson Cox. They've got the leading assist man in Region 11 in Cam Blotter. They've got all this talent. They've got all this size. Their size matches Skyview, who are they're an amazing team in terms of size. But it doesn't feel like they're nearly as dominant as the Bobcats, and so it's a bit of a question mark. And this is a team that they almost did lose to Logan. I was expecting Logan to lose that game, especially given the circumstances when Jordan Child was out. And I was like, really? I mean, I know it's on the road, but Ridgeline is a team that I feel like underperformed a little bit, despite the 4-1 record, despite the fact they're still 13-3 and they're number 3 in the RPI. But this is a team that I feel like hasn't quite hit its potential yet. And if they do, they're state champion material. But I don't think we've really consistently seen this team hit its potential, whereas Skyview, they're constantly hitting their potential.
Right. So Skyview, and to get to them, they are as advertised, and they are playing as we would expect them to play based on the talent they have, the size that they have, and they are doing about what we would expect them to do with what they have. And so that will be interesting to see if they can keep that rolling, or if teams, based on the second time around, seeing them, what adjustments they make to try to counter what Skyview does. And that's what's going to be interesting here in the second half of this region schedule is the coaching adjustments that take place, because now it's the second time that you've seen them. So what adjustments do you make to try to counter what the other teams did to you last time around, or to prevent those from happening again, or prevent somebody from getting up on you last time? If you were able to take care of business, can you take care of business once again?
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I know Logan is able to throw a curveball sometimes at some teams with their defense, where they'd make adjustments mid-game. Sometimes they go to a bit of a zone. Other times they go to a bit of a half-court trap defense. And that's thrown teams off. Even though it's been put on film, teams hadn't experienced it. They hadn't, seen how their team reacts to it with their system. And so we'll see if Logan is vulnerable to that. But, Mitch Argyle's made a lot of good adjustments on the fly, so we'll see how he adjusts to teams trying to counter his, and obviously other teams, how do teams react to the way Skyview and Ridgeline implement their length? Some teams have handled it well at times. Other teams haven't done it so well. How will teams adjust to a lot of the leading scorers? Jared Anderson has been playing very well. How do they adjust to him? And how they adjust to all these different players. It will be interesting to see how they try and defend these guys now that they've seen them on film, not only on film, but on the court. And these players have had a chance to experience what these players are like, and they can combine that experience with some film study, with some new strategizing. So we'll see how these second matchups go.
Yeah, that'll be fun. And so we'll have those games here on local radio. You can listen to, you'll be able to watch these games on CashValleyDaily.com. And I know we've got it addressed now. There were issues earlier in the season, but we've got it addressed where you can go back and watch the games after they are done. Go watch the replay on CashValleyDaily.com for these games. And also the girls basketball games, too, that we've been able to do. Some of these designated girls basketball game of the week. And you can go back and watch the game last night between Ridgeline and Green Canyon as well. So just a quick rundown again of how you can listen to these games tonight. Skyview at Bear River. We'll have the Skyview coverage here on the Fan. Hurricane John Newbold pregame coverage, usually starting at around 6:50. And the Bear River version of that same game will be on 104.9 The Ranch. You can watch that game here on CashValleyDaily.com. It'll be Hurricane John Newbold and his coverage of that game. Logan versus Mountain Crest on 102.1 FM, 610 AM. Also 107.7 KLZX. Jason and Jason Walker and Logan Weber on the call there.
Logan Weber actually won't be here.
Oh, he won't be on that game.
He had a scheduling conflict. He didn't quite plan ahead for the fact that we were switching from Tuesday, Thursday to Wednesday, Friday.
Aha.
So and he didn't catch it until he'd already made some commitments. So it'll just be me all by myself.
Solo mio.
Yeah.
And then Ridgeline and Green Canyon, the two newest schools in Region 11. But that'll be on 104.5 The Ranch and 100.9 Light FM. And that'll be Dave Simmons and Nick Zollinger on the call for that game, also streaming on Cache Valley Daily. So busy night in high school hoops on local radio and on Cache Valley Daily. Shifting gears, it's also going to be a busy night in the Mountain West Conference tonight. Couple different games of note, and certainly one major showdown in conference play at the top of the standings, and that's Boise State. They are on the road at San Diego State, who is still ranked in the top 25, but as of this weekend, they won't because they lost earlier in the week. It's just like that's how it works in the Mountain West Conference this year. As soon as somebody cracks the top 25, they lose that week and they can't sustain their position. So Boise State at number 22, San Diego State. 7 o'clock tonight on FS1. Really big showdown. Fresno State's at UNLV. That's at 9 on FS1. Air Force at Nevada, also at 9, but that's going to be on CBS Sports Network. But certainly all eyes should be on that 7 o'clock showdown in San Diego between the Broncos and the Aztecs.
The heck is with these 9 o'clock tip-offs? When they get both of those are, I mean, they're in the Pacific time zone, so I'll give them that.
Yes.
Still, like we had the 8:30 tip for Utah State, New Mexico, which probably cost about 1,000 fans because there were a bunch of people who didn't want to show up and leave at 12. Going to bed at 12 or 12:30.
It's a school night for a lot of kids. Yeah.
So it's like, so that cost you.
No more late delays. Like if there was going to be, if we all knew there would be a delay for local schools, then that probably would have had a bigger house.
Yeah, potentially.
Maybe.
Or they just didn't want their kids to go to bed at 12 anyway. It's just like
that's true.
This is so like the students, the people who stay up till 3 a.m. anyway, they were all there in full, but people who, jobs and lives and aren't young enough to stay up until 3 in the morning, they had to exercise restraint with that. But it's happening with it's the way of life with Mountain West schools. You have to have a 9 p.m. tip-off or like 8 p.m. local tip-off to have any chance at being on TV.
Yeah, I mean that's the arrangement. CBS and Fox, they fill those late windows. And being in the Western and Pacific time zones, that's what you're going to end up with.
You think ESPN hates the Mountain West because they don't partner TV-wise with them? Isn't that the theory?
Well, that's part of the theory with how the BPI does not like the Mountain West.
Or because all the ESPN people are on the East Coast and they never watch the Mountain West?
There's a little bit of East Coast bias there.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. And it's not isolated to just the Mountain West. I know the Pac-12 and even the West Coast Conference, those conferences have also expressed frustration that they get overlooked and unwatched because they're in such late windows if you're in the Eastern time zone.
Why don't they just flip it? Like have the Eastern teams play late, the Western teams play early. It makes sense.
Well, late for a West Coast team is still like an East Coast team is like a normal tip time in the Mountain West. So, I don't know.
It's frustrating.
It is.
But anyway, to the actual matchups. Yeah, I mentioned we do have some. Obviously, you mentioned all eyes on the Boise State San Diego State game. A normal tip time. Granted, it's like 6 o'clock local for them, so I guess they were excited enough to put that one on there.
Yes.
And the way these two teams are playing, of course, the way the Mountain West seems to be going, it seems like the Aztecs are more likely to win because apparently it's just home team wins for the majority of these games.
Yeah, and we've seen this. San Diego State they've not lost 2 games in a row all season. Utah State was heading to San Diego after they had lost a game previous. They took that out on the Aggies. San Diego State lost earlier this week at Nevada. So if history dictates what could happen in the future, Boise State's going to lose by double digits tonight.
Yeah, something like that.
So
well, that's what happened. Like, Boise State, loses at Nevada, but then they cook Nevada when they come home. And we'll see if Utah State's able to return the favor to any of these teams when they come to the Spectrum. But that's the thing. There's a lot of these teams at the top that are starting to split their series just with the home team winning. Seems to be the case for a lot of these.
Yeah, Boise State, San Diego State currently tied on top of the conference standings, both at 8-2. And then, Utah State, Nevada, both at 7-3. So, technically USU tied for third, but you have to give Nevada the tiebreaker there. So, technically Utah State is in fourth position. But after tonight's games, there will be a 3-way tie there for second place, regardless of what happens, whether it's San Diego State or Boise State in that position. So, this is a big showdown. This is going to be a big one.
It'll be a 2-way tie. Well, because Nevada plays. So.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, Nevada plays later tonight. That's true.
So at the very end of that game, there'll be a tie
for at least
and then in a couple hours, it'll be broken either by Nevada losing, but more likely winning at home against Air Force, and then they can jump into second. Well, they'll jump into
have a half a game lead, so they would move ahead by half a game.
Yeah. So there you go.
So, again, 7 o'clock, FS1, Boise State at San Diego State. 9 o'clock, Nevada hosting Air Force. UNLV hosting Fresno. That's going to be on FS1. Fresno, kind of surprising just how much they've just fallen off and dropped. They played the Aggies kind of tough here, and then the Aggies pulled away in the second half. USU, last weekend took care of business there in Fresno. Expected them to play Wyoming kind of tough, but Cowboys just destroyed them earlier this week. So kind of surprising there. UNLV, though, kind of interesting how they're on the rebound, and they're improving over these last couple of games that they've played, showing that they're a much more different team than they were earlier in conference play.
Yeah, kind of flipping those roles where Fresno State started out all right, where they beat Wyoming, kind of close, but then lose to Utah State. But then Fresno State beat New Mexico.
Yeah, that's so bizarre about this conference.
It was at home, and you think, okay, Fresno State plays at home, but then we see, the other night with Utah State going to Fresno State and then just controlling the game basically wire to wire. Utah State never really lost control of that game. End up beating them by 17 points, and then obviously going to Wyoming and getting their cans crushed there, where they beat Wyoming earlier this year. So yeah, it is weird what Fresno State. We thought they'd be a little more tough, at least based off the way they played Utah State the first time around. And yeah, UNLV. Yeah, UNLV is interesting where they're just kind of the opposite. They started off horrible, and yeah, now they're on a 3-game win streak.
Turning things around a little bit. And then tomorrow, as we'll get into a little bit more detail. I know you were talking about this last hour, but Utah State at Colorado State, that's going to be at 6. It'll be a Mountain West doubleheader. Excuse me, the Mountain West doubleheader on CBS Sports Network with the Aggie game first in Fort Collins, and then Wyoming at San Jose. That'll be the late game after the USU at Colorado State game concludes. But that's, San Jose trying to stay in the middle of the pack. Wyoming trying to get some things figured out now that they're getting some guys healthy and back. Hunter Thompson, Maldonado, they're back. Getting some of these guys healthy and see if they can kind of rebound and become a little bit more relevant in the conference race. Will be interesting to see if they can do that at San Jose on Saturday night.
Yeah, Wyoming trying to probably get themselves into form as best they can for anything resembling a tournament run. Where San Jose State, they're kind of fighting for seeding in that run as well as momentum, where they're in the middle. Maybe they're going to try and jump up, maybe knock a team off or two. They're certainly capable of it with the talent they have, although the last 4 games have not treated them well. Granted, in the last 4 games, they've played New Mexico, loss at Utah State, a loss at San Diego State. So, the Spartans' losing record in conference play, probably not too indicative, but, they're not a top team, but hey, they may knock somebody off eventually.
Yeah, they can. I mean, they played the Aggie stuff. We can see that they can be dangerous. Can't overlook anybody. All right, coming up more next in just a little bit after this timeout. We'll get into the All-Star weekends taking place this weekend and some more thoughts about Utah State and Colorado State. Stick around. 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan.
Bull Moose RV has moved to a new location with a huge indoor shop and the ability to work on several motorhomes and RVs at the same time. They hope to earn your business with amazing service. Bull Moose RV can service your RVs, and now is the best time to get that done before the spring rush. They also have several used RVs for sale. Head in and get a great price on a gently used RV. Find them at 1850 North, 600 West, or online at bullmooseRV.com.
Attention all bargain hunters. Are you in the market for a new appliance but don't want to break the bank? This is Jay with Daryl's Appliance. We just received 2 huge truckloads of scratch and dent appliances that are as good as new, but with a few cosmetic imperfections. You'll get Daryl's exclusive 2-year extended warranty and the famous Daryl's difference on service and warranty. You don't have to sacrifice quality for a great deal. Why pay full price when you can get a dentalicious deal at Daryl's Appliance, west on Airport Road?
What do Valentine's Day and Jarek's have in common? They're both all about the romance. Jarek's Fine Jewelry has a great selection for your sweetheart. Don't sweat it out worrying about where to get the perfect gift. We've recently added a 3D laser engraver. Now through Valentine's, Jarek's will personalize any jewelry purchase for no additional charge. We can engrave a wedding date, a name, or any message on most jewelry, like a pendant, watch, bracelet, the inside or outside of a ring. This Valentine's, let us help personalize your gift and make it special. Make it Jarek's.
What's more important than sleep? Granted, some things are, but not many. This is Ryan at My Mattress, and here we offer the best solution to better sleep, a better mattress. IntelliBed, the gel mattress, cradles your hips and shoulders while providing the best back support possible. Or come in and choose a Tempur-Pedic that boasts 93% of their owners love their bed. My Mattress, offering the best sleep possible by the South Walmart.
This is 2 Pros and a Cup of Joe.
We're getting back into it. And as you said, he can't speak yet, but he is able to write. And one of his first questions was, did we win?
Like, that was the showcase game.
I just love the fact that it puts things back into perspective. It humanized football.
2 Pros, LeVar Arrington, Brady Quinn, and a Cup of Joe, Jonas Knox.
Weekday mornings from 4 to 7 on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan.
Let's talk about getting your car registered. What a pain. With registration and emissions, it takes hours. Valvoline Instant Oil Change in Logan, across from Angie's, will take that pain away. Stop in to get your oil changed and have the emissions test done. Then re-register your car. It's that easy, all in one stop. The best thing, you can stay in your car while their trained pros service your vehicle. Valvoline Instant Oil Change, 695 North Main, open 7 days a week.
Looking for a stable career with great pay, benefits, and positive work environment? This is Scotty with Homestead Cabinets in Hiram. We produce high-quality, state-of-the-art custom cabinetry and are looking for employees who want to become skilled craftsmen. Work Monday through Friday with weekends off. Wages start at $16 per hour with opportunities for growth as you gain experience. Benefits include daily free breakfast, monthly profit sharing, as well as great health insurance. Homestead is a company that values its employees. They emphasize growth of the individual as well as the company. Go to homesteadcabinet.net and apply today.
Want to set yourself apart from the competition? The Leadership MBA at Utah State University will help you lead companies and drive change in your organization. You can attend in person in Logan on Thursday evenings or take an interactive online class. Complete your MBA in as little as a year. Apply before March 1st to be considered for summer semester. Contact the MBA office for a waiver of the $55 application fee. Learn more at utahstatemba.com. That's utahstatemba.com.
Are you ready for Valentine's kisses and wishes? It's time to make your Valentine's Day reservation for the Sweethearts Buffet at the Riverwoods Conference Center on Friday, February 10th. Experience a romantic ambiance with piano music and a kissing booth backdrop for selfies. A delicious selection of entrees that include herb-roasted New York loin and pesto roasted turkey. And it wouldn't be Valentine's without a decadent dessert bar filled with all your favorite dreamy sweets. Now as for the kisses, better make your reservation today. Riverwoods Conference Center. Call 750-5151.
It's cold outside, but you can keep warm inside with a quality-built, super-efficient York furnace. Count on a furnace from York because it's backed by the strongest warranties available. It's just another way we install confidence. Call Advanced Heating and Air Conditioning, your local York dealer, at 752-7272. Online at advancedheating-ac.com. York, install confidence.
We're not comfortable until you are. Advanced Heating and Air.
Following the local teams, it's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
Welcome back to the Full Court Press. Eric Frandsen, Jason Walker. Still several things we want to get through. Looking at the weekend, busy weekend. We got high school hoops tonight. We got Mountain West Conference games tonight. We got Mountain West tomorrow with Utah State at Colorado State. We got some all-star festivities going on in the NHL and in the NFL. But also the Utah Jazz, they're in action. In fact, they're in action tonight. We've got the Skyview game tonight, and I think the plan is to join the Jazz in progress. I'm not entirely sure, but I think that's the plan for
Shouldn't
tonight.
you know? Aren't you like one of the station managers
well,
or something?
We've had some issues with the satellite provider that gives us the feed for the Jazz this week, but hoping that's all addressed by the time that game takes place. Nonetheless, Jazz do play the Hawks. And Atlanta's coming into town. Utah's in this stretch where a lot of games are at home, and they're taking advantage of that. They're on a nice little run here, and moving up in the standings, kind of bolstering their position. It's still very, very close and still very tight, and it will continue to be that way probably until a little bit after the All-Star break, and then I would imagine there starts to be some separation. But earlier this week, on Wednesday night, Jazz had the Toronto Raptors in town, and it was a block party with Walker Kessler. Lauri Markkanen got going in the second half. Utah still struggled a bit in that fourth quarter, as we've already talked about, giving up 3-point shots and way too many offensive rebounds. But tonight's an interesting matchup, just where there's been a lot of trade talk about Utah and Atlanta connected together. And this, the one time Atlanta's going to be in town to see if the players that were being discussed may be worth their salt and worth further discussion.
Yeah, John Collins, a lot of fans will get to see him up close and personal, assuming he's not injured for some weird reason or whatnot. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see him play. Obviously, the big show, obviously is Trae Young and Dejounte Murray, a couple guys averaging 20-plus points. Although the Hawks, they're not doing super hot in terms of their most recent form. The Jazz, they've won 3 out of 4. The Hawks have lost 4 out of their last 6. So they're in a bit of a struggle there. But interesting thing, the Jazz have a chance to have their first 3-game win streak since November 12th.
Wow.
That was they were on the tail end of a 4-game winning streak, actually, in that one. But still, they've had a bunch of, little 2-game bursts. Well, like 5 or 6 of them. 5 or 6 of these little 2-game bursts. But not a 3-game win streak. Despite the fact they came back, there were a few games behind 500, and they fought all the way back, but they've not done it with a winning streak. It's usually these 3 out of 4, 4 out of 6 kind of little runs they've been doing. But maybe they can get back on a win streak with this one and keep it going. We'll see. The Hawks are a team that's not lived up to their billing, despite they traded for Murray with the impression that would put them over the top from being like a 4 or 5 seed into like a 3, 4 seed, maybe even a 2 seed. And where are they at in the standings? Like 8?
The Hawks?
The Hawks?
Yeah, 8th.
8? Ha! I guessed and I got it right.
Yeah,
nailed it.
Floating around there, between 7, 8, 9. They've just kind of moved around a little bit back and forth there.
Right there with
right
the Knicks. The Knicks, whose offseason acquisition was Oh, that one guy from Dallas that put up like a bajillion points on the Jazz.
Oh, Brunson.
Yeah, Brunson. Jalen. I was thinking Jalen. I was like, Jalen House? No, that's the New Mexico guy. Yeah, Jalen Brunson. Like, that was their offseason acquisition. And that the Hawks, who traded for Murray, who was like almost a triple-double guy in San Antonio. And he's averaging 20 points for him. Like, Murray's not doing bad, but the Hawks just can't figure things out. Certainly a potent team. Whenever you've got players like that, you can certainly pull off any game you're in, but for some reason the Hawks managed to underperform the entire season.
They do, and I know there was a lot of controversy earlier in the year about Trae Young and that coaching staff and not on the same page and not getting along, but they seem to have mended a few things. They did get on a bit of a win streak earlier in January, about mid-month January, and they won like 5 games in a row. But since then, as you've already mentioned, they've lost 4 out of their last 6 games and struggling a little bit. They did beat Phoenix earlier in the week. Of course, Phoenix is just in all kinds of shambles right now, so I don't know how much you really want to read into that.
Yeah, they've fallen apart from the budding dynasty they were to what is going on?
Yeah, a shell of their former selves. And so, yeah, definitely a different situation for the Suns. But look, this is an Atlanta team that's been on the road a bit here. They were on the road for a while. They came home to play the Clippers, and then they were back on the road again. And so which sometimes when that happens, it's just like another road game. When you're on the road, you go home for one game, and then you're back on the road. It's just another game where you're on the road.
Yeah, basically. It's just like, oh, I remember this hotel. Wait a minute, it's my bed.
Yeah,
it's my bedroom.
So they've been traveling really since about the 22nd of January, and then they've still got more games to go before they finally get home for a couple of games.
Yeah,
so this is a tough stretch for the Hawks.
Yeah, it's the third game of normally the 5-game road trip. But as you said, they had the home game and then 2 road games before that. So yeah, they're all of. Well, this would be like basically their 6th, if you count that home game as a road game nominally, 6th road game in a row, 6th different stop in terms of where they're playing basketball in a row, and they've not done terribly well since they've again lost 4 out of their last 6, lost to the Trailblazers, did beat the Suns as you said. Yeah, the Jazz. This is another one of those try and take advantage of an opponent in a bit of a vulnerable position in terms of scheduling and whatnot. Try and take advantage of that and get a win. Especially if it's a team that's like, 8th in the standings. The Jazz have done decently well against teams lower in the standings, at least coming away with results. Not necessarily that they'll blow them out, but they can come away with results against these lower teams. So hopefully the Jazz pull it out, stay above 500. They just got there to the 27-6 after beating the Raptors, after fighting and fighting, getting 500, then losing, getting 500, then losing. And they got above. See if they can stay there.
Right. Add a little cushion there. This is a team, Utah, that still can score and can be really exciting, but they let their opponents score. They had some stretches against Toronto where they played really well defensively early in the game, but gave up so many offensive rebounds and second chance opportunities, and then let them starting to hit threes late in the game. That game probably looks a little bit on Wednesday, looked a little bit closer than it really was, but still, that Utah can struggle a little bit. Van Vliet really led the Toronto Raptors and directed the show. They're going to have a similar situation where a guard will come in and direct the show and can be difficult to guard and contend with Trae Young coming to town.
Well, the Jazz have been just giving it up to opposing guards. Van Vliet, they gave up to Spencer Dinwiddie, Kyrie Irving, Damian Lillard. Keep going down the list. And you've got a team walking in where their 2 best players are, they're both guards. So good luck, I guess. Now, granted, they've gotten wins against them. They beat the Mavericks. They beat the Raptors. They beat some of these teams even when giving up those big numbers. Granted, they also lost to the Nets and Trailblazers in those other cases. So even when giving up 30, 40, or 60 points to the opposing guard, Jazz can win. But obviously it would make it a lot easier if you just wouldn't do that, maybe. That'd be nice.
That would be nice.
It'd be really nice if they did that. But, that is the weakness of this team. And it was something that I predicted before the season. I didn't predict how well the Jazz would do, but I knew this team would be a good offensive team. Knew Lauri Markkanen could put up points. I didn't think he'd average 24 a game. But I knew Clarkson was good, Conley, and these other guys in with Olynyk playing a 5-out lineup. Although now they're not doing a 5-out lineup because Kessler's starting. But
yeah,
they could do these kind of things where they have a good lineup and a bunch of good offensive players. Coming off the bench, you have Beasley and Sexton and all these guys. So it's clear they could be a good offensive team. Defensively, they're working on it. Kessler's coming in as interior, shot blocking presence. He's working on that shot blocking and also just rim deterrence and overall like rim protection, because there's a difference between, surprisingly enough, there's a difference between getting blocks and actual rim protection. Because you can block shots and not really be much of a rim deterrent. Surprisingly enough, that is actually possible.
Right.
And obviously, Gobert he was a shot blocker and rim deterrent, and Kessler is certainly working on that. He's getting pretty good at that. But obviously, you got to build the rest of the defense. Ochai Agbaji is theoretically part of that in the future, where he becomes a 3-and-D guy. But there's weaknesses in this defense in other places. Conley's getting older. He's not really able to play the defense he was. Clarkson's never really been much of a defender, neither Beasley. Rudy Gay is too old to be playing defense. Colin Sexton's too small to be playing defense. So, in Markkanen, despite his length, is usually just passable on defense. So most of your team are either too young to be super impactful, Kessler's being about as impactful as he can be as a rookie. Agbaji is probably too young to be taking on any significant defensive load. And basically everyone else is either meh or bad on defense.
Yeah, it's interesting. They've, with Olynyk coming back from injury, they went with a really big lineup where they had Markkanen, Olynyk, and Kessler on the floor with their starting lineup. You got that's 3 7-footers.
I don't know how many times have teams trotted out 3 7-footers. You get the 2 7-footer lineups every now and again. You used to get them when you had a handful of those 7-foot power forwards, the Dirk Nowitzkis and all that. But really, 3 of them?
I know, because you got your center, your power forward, and then your small forward. But 7 feet, all of them in that range. But that was a really effective lineup for Utah with Mike Conley and Jordan Clarkson manning the other positions on the court, at least in the early goings of the game against Toronto. And will that change? Will that continue? Because it seems like Kessler has really taken Jared Vanderbilt out of rotation largely with Utah. Vanderbilt doesn't see the court quite as much just because Kessler has evolved more. Not because they necessarily play the same position, because they don't, but it does affect the other rotations and who gets minutes and how Utah and Will Hardy is going to use his personnel.
Yeah, and that's the thing is I don't like moving Vanderbilt less than the rotation, where he's still playing some minutes, but I feel like he should be able to get most of the minutes. If you take Kessler out and you leave, Markkanen and Kelly Olynyk in, you put Vanderbilt in, because usually you try and have your lineups either have 4 or 5 shooters. And the Jazz can do that, have Kessler starting, and you run with the 4 shooters, the Olynyk, Markkanen, Clarkson, Conley. Then you have Kessler as your 1 non-shooter. Early in the year, they were just having Vanderbilt play the 4 and Olynyk playing the 5. You still have your 4 shooters. It's just the 4th one that's centered instead of power forward. I feel like Vanderbilt should be able to fit. It's tougher for them to fit. And this is probably why Kessler's demanding a lot of minutes, and so there's fewer minutes available at all for Vanderbilt to play, because he has to play them when Kessler's not on the court. And he basically has to play them with Kelly Olynyk. But if Olynyk is playing minutes with Walker Kessler, it gets difficult. Obviously, he still got 18 minutes in the last game, but this is a guy who was averaging 24-25 on the season earlier and was a starter for a bunch of his early games.
Yeah, so interesting to see where Utah is. I mean, this is a team that still has a little less than a week to go before the trade deadline. We've heard Kelly Olynyk's name floated, Mike Conley, Malik Beasley, Jared Vanderbilt. We've heard several different names floated as potential trade targets, or I don't know if target's the right word.
Trade pieces?
Pieces, yeah, that may be better. But I think this team really is going to, in the end, say, look, really anybody's available except for Walker, Kessler, Lowry, Markkanen, and Ochai Agbaji.
Yeah, pretty much. And to be honest, even Agbaji could be available for the right piece. Just because he hasn't quite shown the explosion that Walker Kessler has.
No. But he's evolving. He was playing closeout minutes Wednesday night. His shot is evolving, and Will Hardy is praising his physicality on the defensive side.
Yeah, so he's a lot less available now, or at least they'd be asking a lot more for him because he's looking like a future rotation player, maybe you could call him like a role starter. The guy's maybe a starter, 3-and-D basically. Not taking on a scoring load, but obviously playing a key role. Kind of like another Royce O'Neal, but actually playing the correct position this time.
Yes.
So, I think Walker Kessler has really made Jared Vanderbilt pretty expendable because Vanderbilt was seen as, all right, this is maybe a bit of a defensive core piece. This is our versatile forward. But the fact that Vanderbilt is, a power forward as a non-shooter makes things a little trickier, and so they might try and, that's why Vanderbilt for John Collins seems to be a bit of a popular, trade for trade machine Jazz fans. Because Collins can shoot threes. You plug him at the 4, maybe have him starting instead of Kelly Olynyk, and, got a pretty good lineup there.
Yeah, an opportunity to revitalize his career.
Yeah, and that's the idea. You're trying to revitalize his career, get assets in return, because, the Jazz potentially getting a first-round pick plus John Collins, like from Atlanta, and, whatever other trade pieces are involved there. That's incredibly enticing. The chance to not only revitalize a talented player, but get a first-round pick on top of that. You don't really get much better than, there's not another better trade for the Jazz. Obviously, Atlanta has been very hesitant to do that. They don't want to give up a pick and John Collins. And if they eventually cave on that, then the Jazz would make away really like bandits. Even if the trade didn't really pan out that well, getting that kind of haul for a Vanderbilt plus a couple of pieces and maybe a second-round pick thrown in, that's it's like when you traded Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert for the haul. Like, it worked out, but even if it doesn't completely work out, still, that's like you got the most for your money for a piece that you didn't necessarily need down the line.
Yeah. So, big game tonight in Utah, taking on the Atlanta Hawks. Then Utah has another couple of days off, and then it'll be Dallas back in town on Monday. And we would expect Luka Doncic to be available in that one. So could be
unless he's scared.
Could be a very different outcome on Monday than the last time they played him. But Jazz just played Dallas just a few days ago, and played them pretty well, minus Luka Doncic. But Dallas still made that game tough and made it a close game at the end. They tried to rally and get back into it a little bit.
Well, Jazz let everyone do that. They'll be beating a team by 60 and then beat them by 3 in the fourth quarter.
This is true.
Which is the difference between last year, because last year they'd be beating them by 65 and still lose by 15.
Yeah.
This year they'll give up the lead, but then they'll still win. Usually, sometimes.
Maybe.
Enough.
Well, I mean, this team is destined to play close games, but what we're starting to see is maybe a little bit of a turn of the tide compared to what we saw earlier in January when they had so many close games, and more of those they were losing, but they were in the hunt. They were in the final stretch there, but they're starting to learn a little bit more about how to win those games or how to hang on or not let themselves collapse. And I think that's as much about the team, this young team learning how to do that, but also this coaching staff learning how to coach through those situations too.
Yeah, because it's a young coaching staff. Will Hardy's not an old man.
No.
And it is nice because they're doing this turnaround as they've put the young guys in the rotation. Agbaji getting more minutes, Kessler starting and getting more minutes. And we talked about this earlier where It's great they're playing in this many games because these young kids are getting valuable experience in, tough games, tight games, games that matter.
Meaningful.
Yeah, because, we're fighting for a playoff spot, guys. It's not we're fighting to be only 13 games below 500. They're fighting close games against good opponents, fellow teams also fighting for the playoffs. And so this team is getting, several rookies and several guys who are stepping into their first primary role, for the first time, Markin and Beasley. Yeah, and these guys, they're stepping into these big roles for the first time. They're getting that experience right away instead of, all right, we're going to get the tar beaten out of us for 3 years, and you're going to put up some good stats, but you're not going to win a single game. Well, they're going out there, they're performing, and they're, getting into the playoff hunt. So that's going to be valuable experience for these guys down the road. And if the Jazz are also able to parlay all their picks into some, valuable asset, have experienced, well-developed rookies and young players, then you add an alpha who's then able to learn from these experienced guys, himself.
Yeah.
Then,
best case scenario.
Yeah, that is absolutely an incredible scenario.
So, yeah, Utah tonight. That's at 7 because of the Skyview game. That will take precedence, and then we hope to be able to join the Jazz game in progress. But also this weekend, there are some fun all-star festivities going on with the NFL. Of course, some of those started last night. Some of these continue through the weekend. The NHL All-Star Weekend is also taking place this weekend. But both are adding new events. And I have to applaud them for being creative and trying to add some new things. Some may be a little bit gimmicky.
A lot of them are gimmicky.
But it could make it interesting nonetheless. So there's a couple different elements. We'll start with the Pro Bowl in the NFL. So they're going to have multiple flag football games, which is a little bit odd.
I just want an offensive lineman and defensive lineman flag football game. I will watch that. Please tell me that's one of them.
Well, there's
the 300-pound flag football game.
There will be a dodgeball game. So these events are in Las Vegas.
So the dodgeball played with a football, or is it just a dodgeball game?
I think it's going to traditional dodgeball.
Okay, it's just playing dodgeball.
Then there's a lightning round of different events that will take place. One of them is a splash catch. You toss water balloons back and forth, increasing the distance each time.
This is just grown men playing party games.
Then there will be they call it high stakes. There will be you catch punts, attempts to catch punts from a jugs machine.
This is literally just dude perfect.
And then there's the thrill of the spill. You aim at targets attached to a bucket hanging above the head of an opposing conference's coach. First team to dump the bucket wins.
They really should just invite Dude Perfect to this event.
There's the longest drive. It's a golf tee. There's precision passing. There's different points based on the size of the hole you can get it through. There's a best catch. There'll be a best catch competition. Okay.
So that's something, because here's the thing. You're listing off all these things. You just need an iconic event. For, I think, quarterbacks, longest throw. I don't know if that could be as iconic as, a home run derby, a slam dunk contest. The NHL and NFL, if they're going to go to these skills things, which I don't mind that attempt because, watching grown men play party games, as much as I derided it a few seconds ago, is actually kind of fun. I mentioned Dude Perfect. Dude, how many million subscribers they have on YouTube?
A lot of people watch.
I enjoy watching Dude Perfect. So it's and that's why I said they should invite him there because it might make it really fun. So it's fun to kind of watch these party games, but they'll have something iconic because that'll really draw in the viewers and it'll draw in the news. Who's going to care who won the splash catch? Okay, I might watch a second of it on Twitter, but find something that can be iconic. Like I said, home run derby, slam dunk contest.
That epitomizes your sport.
Yeah, and it can be hard because, in baseball, okay, the home run derby, that's super easy to come up with. Just how many home runs can you hit? It's just playing the sport just with you slightly alter what's going on there. In the slam dunk contest, well, of course you're going to do something like that. In the 3-point shootout. It's see if you can find something with your sport.
What about kick-tack-toe? The kicker, punter, long snapper.
Like I said, this is just
it's a giant tic-tac-toe competition.
That actually, like I said, some of this can sound kind of fun, but it just sounds like something you find on YouTube. We're going to play kick-tac-toe. It's just like, it can be fun to watch, but try and find something iconic. Do these fun things, go for it. And these guys are going to have an absolute blast doing this, and I applaud, I can applaud that. But find something iconic for your All-Star weekend that you can market around that'll get, viewers and it'll get people excited. Because these things, they come and go. They may be fun, but in the end, there's only so much you can do before it gets really boring.
Yes. Well, that's all taking place this weekend. NHL festivities also taking place this weekend. There will be no lack of seeing stars compete in odd games and competitions between the two teams, or the two sports, I should say. NFL events, those are in Las Vegas. You're going to be on ESPN and ABC. NHL, those games are in Fort Lauderdale, also on ESPN and ESPN+. That's going to do it for us tonight. Hope you have a great weekend. We got high school hoops tonight, Utah State men's basketball tomorrow. We'll be back on Monday to recap it all. Until then, have a great weekend.